Why do some business owners effortlessly just manage to scale up to six, multi-six, seven, eight figures, while tons of other business owners just work twice as hard and they stay stuck? I've worked with nearly 300 clients now and helped them generate millions of pounds or dollars in wins. And I've discovered that it comes down to one thing. And that thing is a concept called friction, which I'm going to talk to you about today. Now, the successful people in business and in our client base have mastered the art of removing barriers, while the people that continue to struggle tend to just keep adding extra friction in. So I want to go through a few different things. Friction, I want to talk about the importance of you having a vision. I then want to talk about how you can make your vision or the removal of friction very easy. And then I'm going to go through how this applies to the four main areas of your business. All right, offer, marketing, sales, and delivery. So this is just me, no edits, got a little bit of water, so let's hop in. Now, every business owner has a goal of some description, or if we even go further back than that, every person has a goal, all right? Let's go with the personal sort of lifestyle angle. Your goal might be to lose weight, which is great. You know, I'm trying to do it right now, certainly tone up anyway. And it's very easy, if there's nothing standing in your way, to just go and achieve the goal. All right, it could be a revenue goal as well, or a profit goal as an example. But the minute that you start to overcomplicate stuff or add extra things in, or certainly add constraints or remove all constraints, you are implementing or putting friction into the process. Okay, so same goal, but stuff is standing in the way. All right, and when you add friction, you know, the concept of friction, essentially, if I want to push this pen over here, I can just go like that. Okay, really strong. But if I put something in the way, that is friction, which slows the motion down and kills or can kill any momentum. So when we look at this from a business perspective, lots of people I see are just trying to do more and more. They've got more boxes to tick. They're adding in extra constraints or extra barriers that actually halt or completely halt or stall the goal that they have in mind. Okay, examples. Let's look at this. So if you have, let's say, the goal of losing 3 stone in weight, you could quite easily sign up to a gym. But if you put it off, or you go and research 10 gyms as an example, rather than just picking the easiest one or the quickest one, and we'll get onto the fear framework in a sec, but that is adding unnecessary friction. And you can probably, just even listening to this, the short part of this video so far, come up with a couple of ideas in your head about, yeah, I can see where I've added friction in. Let's just do a couple of examples off here. So in terms of your offer, you want people to just buy. So that is the goal. But if you give them 10 different fucking options, you are adding in a lot of friction. And that means the process is going to slow down. So what this really is about is a process of simplification rather than just increasing things. And we'll get into more of these in a sec. So we imagine no friction, any goal can get past it. Let's look now at, most importantly, the vision side of things, okay? This is you right here. You have a vision. You want to get to a certain goal. That could be the weight loss goal, as an example. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to see various amounts of friction throughout your journey to this weight loss goal. It might be that you get ill, all right? And what happens is the friction is obviously increased. It's harder for you to then go to the gym. You might have a money issue which stops your MyFitnessPal subscription from being able to continue, and therefore there's more friction because you can't track your calories. Or your PT might cancel on you last second, and you might have to go and do the session on your own, therefore you're not as productive. All friction that can be removed wherever possible. So what this friction represents are these lines, these oscillations between you and the place that you want to get to, aka the vision. So if you operate from a point of removing those in the first place and making simple, fast decisions, you're going to coast a lot easier, and these oscillations are going to be a lot smaller, and they're probably going to be kept within some lines, some guidelines that you set in order to get you to the goal faster because the momentum continues. So the concept of friction in business, for me, is very, very simple. It comes down to looking at this vision and going, what do I need to achieve it? And then probably eliminating or altering a lot of the aspects that you've thought about already. Example. So if we look at fear, or the fear framework that I've got here, if you want to do something, the best thing that you can do is make it fast, so you can implement it very quickly. You can make it easy, so you can implement it without any or as little friction as possible. You make it certainly achievable or within sight of being achievable. I'm not saying don't have a massive vision, of course, but you want it to be achievable. And there should always be a little quick reward of some description, all right? So this is where it really comes down to systems and habits. So how are you going to be able to execute these little micro tasks or commitments or daily rituals that stack up in order to get you to the vision? Well, you have to make sure that they are fast, they're easy, they're achievable, and you have a reward at the end of them. An example that people might resonate with is, let's just say, outreach. Okay, so that is one thing that has a lot of friction involved in it. If you think about all the friction involved in doing it, it could be sort of a mindset or a confidence issue or barrier coming up. You know, you might not want to reach out to people because you've never done it before or you're afraid of rejection. You might just actually have a skill issue, all right? And that skill issue could be that you don't have the knowledge, you don't know what to do. It could be an operational thing, like you don't have scripts as an example. It could be a speed issue or a speed point of friction where you don't have them templated so you can fire them out fast. What else we got here in terms of outreach? Let's just leave it at that, okay? So what we can do now is look at this vision, okay? And we know that one thing that we might need to do to get us there is to reach out to people. So we know that outreach now needs to become a very sort of a habitual process, let's say. And therefore, in order to make it habitual, we probably need to eliminate some of these barriers and reduce the friction in order to allow us to get to the vision, right? So how do we make outreach nice and fast? Well, that comes down to the speed. If we can template these messages, or I like to save certain templated outreach messages or DM replies, as they're called, there's something to do with text replacements. That's it. On Apple, you can have a text replacement. So if I press Z follow on my iPhone, it will kick in and go, hey, thanks for the follow, how's it going? Or something like that, all right? So I've now made outreach nice and fast, okay? I've also made it pretty easy because I've scripted certain things and certain elements out. So I don't have to think. I've removed friction in terms of me having to think about things. So do I need to think anymore about outreach? Not really, all right? It may be as well, you might have a list of people or a tracker, a CRM as an example, all right? To make it achievable, well, it's certainly achievable. I probably just need to work on the skill, which will then enhance the mindset. And this is where consistency comes in, which means it needs to be a habitual thing, right? So again, making it fast, certainly making it easy, but making it achievable is making sure maybe that I've got space in my calendar to do it every day. So I block out like 9 till 11 a.m. daily. And that means nothing else is going to distract me, and it makes everything achievable because I have stacked up things to make it fast because I've got the templates. Okay, I can fire them out quickly, easy because I've got the templates. It's achievable. Now the reward is either going to be something that you set yourself, or it's going to be a positive reply or a call being booked as an example, or someone buying something. So you can see if you apply this framework to the steps or the habits that are needed within your journey to get to your vision, you are easily going to be able to eliminate friction very, very quickly. Now, I didn't want to ramble on for ages. What are we on, like 10 minutes, 9 minutes? I wanted to talk about some certain friction points within each of these 4 categories, so offer, marketing, sales, and delivery, and talk about how you might be able to combat them as well. So, first and foremost, we already covered this one, but too many options, all right? If you have too many options, you're causing people to go, ooh, I've got to make a choice now. Like, we have done 7 figures, almost 1.5 million off one offer, and that's it, okay? One offer, we've sold it in a few different ways, but if you hop on a call with us, we prescribe one thing and one thing only, and that makes it a very binary choice, even though a lot of people still say maybe, but ultimately they all come back. But you've got a yes or a no. Do you want to do this now or not? and it becomes very easy. But if I put 10 different offers, or let's just even say 3 different offers on the table in front of people, they're going to be like, I'm not quite sure. What about this one? What about? And they'll have more questions, and that just brings up more objections and more reasons not to buy. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion. So that's the first point of removing friction, is just reduce the number of things you're trying to do or sell. Now, another example of friction is not having any differentiation. You look online and you will see so many people saying the same thing, posting the same content, the same tips. They'll all have the same promise. They'll all operate in the same market. They'll all look up to the same influencers. They'll all comment on the same people's posts. And that brings in friction for the buyer, because there's no clear route to go, oh, this person's different. And this is why personal brand is something that I really, really believe in if you want to build something sustainable, certainly in the online info or education space, which most of our clients are in. So the goal becomes very easy when you're one of one. But if you become one of 50 or one of 1,000, which is probably still a very modest number, that is a lot of friction, because again, the buyer's brain has to make a choice as to whether who they go with. So that adds in things that are going to stall progress. Again, not being specific. So if you have an offer and you're just saying, oh, I'll help you win clients, or oh, I'll help you lose weight, there's no specificity there. All right. So specificity, we can attack that with time or duration and metrics or numbers. So the way I like to do that with an offer is, imagine you printed a report of all the figures that you have worked on with a potential client, or an existing client, I should say. Every single figure, every single number or metric that could have been tracked over the past 12 months. And then you pick the one metric that your client will be most happy to see go up. And then you pick the one metric that your client will be most happy to see go down or decrease. And you can then say, I help you do this with less of this. And very, very simple, because then you can get specific and attach metrics to it. Okay. Now, when it comes to the marketing, I see a lot of people, they're posting online, which is great, because it held me back for 5 years, that fear of judgment and being scared to actually post. But they're doing it very willy-nilly, all right? They don't actually have an objective behind the post. They are literally just coming along and ticking a box, which, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have the vision or the goal, it's very hard to set an objective and a strategy around the activities that you do day to day, all right? So once you have a plan, it also makes things very fast, because you've got this set of standards or these guardrails in place that actually allow you to go, oh, well, is that within my standards, or is it without or outside my standards? And then you can make a call. So having objectives, super, super crucial. If you don't have them, again, you're just adding in friction, because you're wasting time having to make decisions that you could have made a while ago if you just sat down for a couple of hours and crafted out this set of principles or guidelines that you're going to operate within. Same with CTAs, okay? Not a lot of people will post relevant CTAs or try and get people to do something after consuming their content. And what that does is closes the loop. You do not want a closed loop at the end of a piece of content. You want someone needing or feeling like they want more, all right? Again, example of friction, because they don't know what to do. The other thing, it kind of comes back to specificity, but is talking to everyone, all right? I'm not going to go into that too much. We've all heard the phrase, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. So therefore, be specific. Specific about your audience and their pain points. Too much planning. This is possibly the biggest friction point I have ever come across. And I say this with a lot of fucking passion, because I am one of those people. Recovering perfectionist is what I would like to call it. So, as an example, okay, you have, again, something that you want to achieve. We'll call it the goal, all right? But if you spend this much time messing around, trying to figure out, should I use Kajabi? Should I use Notion? Should I use Slack? Should I use this? Is it best on LinkedIn? Is it best on Instagram? All that does is immediately place a load of friction and also waste time. Because whilst you're doing this, not only are your competitors moving forward because they've just decided on the sort of path of least resistance, but also the market's changing too. So by the time you arrive at making a decision, you've got a bunch of people that will already potentially be ahead of you, and also the game will have just completely 360'd and changed. So too much planning and not making fast decisions is a massive example of adding friction in unnecessarily. When it comes to sales, big example of friction that we use is you have to fill out 3 things before you can hop on a call with us. So this is the reverse of what I've been talking about, where we actually add in friction on purpose, because it got to a point where our calendar was just like, oh my God, we're getting so many calls booked, but like at least half of them are shit and they're not people that we actually want to work with for a variety of reasons. So we chose to actually make things harder and put in this friction by introducing some qualification and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that's what everyone should do. Until you're getting time poor based on the number of calls you booked in, then remove all the friction whatsoever. You want as many people to just glide into your calendar as humanly possible. 1, because you're going to get some clients out of it, and 2, even if they're not a good fit, what you're going to be able to do is practice the sales process and refine it. Certainly the way you conduct a discovery and position and pitch the offer. So having qualification is a very good idea, but you don't necessarily need it at the start. But qualification, you want to increase and reduce the friction around it. Let's say we didn't put any qualification standards in place for our business. Jesus, can you imagine? We wouldn't even have time to take calls with the right people because we'd be opening the floodgates and letting all the wrong people in, which is exactly what we didn't want to do. An example of friction for the sales call itself is not having a script or a map. So I actually have a roadmap. I'm going to pin it up shortly. We've updated it slightly, but we have a roadmap. So it's not a script, but a roadmap for all our sales calls that we follow. And it's based on 7 steps. Now, what that does is remove friction, because instead of guessing what we're having to say or adapting to the prospect, we've actually got this clear path to get to the end of the sales call. And we've got guidelines that we stay within. So super simple. Big one, manually collecting payments. Imagine you hop on a call with us, you want to join C2C. We tend to make a very sort of decent financial incentive on the call for people to join if it's their first call with us. And what that does is allows us to collect payment automatically within a matter of seconds. But if you're hopping off the call, imagine if we hopped off the call and started going, okay, yeah, don't worry, we'll send you an invoice. You just pay that whenever you're ready. Massive friction, all right? We want to remove this shit. We don't want any barriers in the way of us collecting any payment, okay? And finally, delivery. When it comes to delivery, onboarding is a massive friction point for people. Reason being, I've worked with a lot of coaches, right? And I will just hop in. I'm working with one at the moment. Great coach, helping me with YouTube. There was no onboarding process. I didn't get access to a calendar. I had to start texting and asking where to go, which is fine. But if you're trying to serve people at scale, you want a centralized onboarding process. Ours, as an example, we're on a sales call. We're on the call. We fill out a very quick form with email and payment details. And then that zaps out, using Zapier, access to our course. It zaps out a contract, and it zaps out a load of tasks for the team in order for us to get in touch and arrange a proper onboarding call and stuff like that. Alternatively, we could remove even more friction and arrange the onboarding call on the sales call itself, okay? So you can see we want this bump here between where we are now and where we want to go to be as small as possible. If you don't have a roadmap for clients, so you're not telling clients, okay, the first thing that happens is this, then this, then this, then this, and maybe there's some contingencies in there as well. But if you don't have a direct plan of what's going to happen, again, this just causes friction because you don't necessarily know where you're up to or where the client's up to, and even worse, they don't. So then they might start to develop buyer's remorse or whatever. All right. If you don't have any extra materials. So I'm not necessarily saying that everyone has a course, but let's say you're a videographer, as an example, and you go on shoots all the time. It is going to be well worth you taking 2 hours of your day, or hopefully just an hour, to craft a very, very loose template for a shoot or a checklist or a briefing form that you can fill in. Because once you've done this, it reduces the friction for all the future clients as well, and you've also got a bit of a plan. So materials are super key, and also a contract. Massive friction. Imagine if a client doesn't want to pay you, right? Or imagine that they are unhappy with something, or you want to get rid of them. If you've not got a contract, what does that do? It takes this no friction, easy, well, we've got documentation, here it is, all the way up, and it stalls you being able to get the outcome that you want. So I just wanted to hop on and do this quick live to show you a bit about where my brain's been at with this concept, because I think it's fascinating, and you'll be able to see it play out in all certain areas of your life as well. You know, if we go back to the gym analogy, is it going to increase or reduce friction if you get your gym kit ready the night before? Obviously, it's going to reduce it. So there are all these little things that you can do in order to stack the odds in your favor by reducing these sort of lines and just having one clear path without any of these sort of oscillations that I mentioned. Anyway, hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.